Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
The process that we use is coined the business blueprint because it's exactly that. It is laying out the roadmap for you of your business and where it's headed. And the purpose of the roadmap is so that the vision of the business doesn't just live in your head in these jumbled sequences of thoughts and ideas, but it is concrete and it's on paper and it is shared and communicated widely with your team and anyone who's supporting you. And the purpose of doing that is to make sure that if you've got multiple people making decisions on your behalf in your business, you want them all making decisions that are leading to the same thing. So it's really important for them to be able to visualize the outcome of what they're doing so that eventually someday, whatever this vision is that you have, you achieve that.
You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. When you're a multi-passionate, creative entrepreneur, loving all the things and having all the ideas, how do you best prioritize all those things and choose the right things to scale your business efficiently and effectively? That's the question my guest, Casey Gromer, is helping us answer today. Casey is an MBA and 20-year marketing veteran who spent many years in corporate perfecting her marketing, operations, and management skills. She led product and marketing teams for Fortune 100 companies like Wells Fargo and United Healthcare. After leaving corporate, she focused her work on elevating women in leadership, which sparked the idea for her current venture. She-Suite Boutique is a fractional operations consultancy for visionary female founders. You can follow Casey's business advice for women entrepreneurs on her podcast, Female Founders Breaking Boundaries, or pick up her book, A Fresh Wave of Marketing, on Amazon. I've known Casey for a few years now, and we bonded what feels like ages ago over being questioners, a la Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies. If you want to know more about that, listen to the Strategy Call, episode 58 with Venice Lau, as she's a questioner also. Casey and I have compared research notes, remember, we're questioners, on the best ways to regain our health and find that precious balance between business and family. And although we have different specialties, we both help other moms in business do the same. In our conversation today, she surprised me with a story about a time I helped her that changed the course of her life as a mom and moving forward in her business. And I had no idea. This is such a good reminder that we don't know the ripple effect of what we do. So please trust that what you're doing is making a difference. Today, Casey walks us through her signature business blueprint process. She offers a worksheet on her website that serves as a starting point to this process. You can go to she-suiteboutique.com/positively to request this free download. From there, you can start creating a filter to prioritize what's next for you in your business. Her book is an excellent companion piece to this discussion too and lays out the entire process. It's a quick read and an affordable investment, and I will have the links to both of those in the show notes for you. What I adore most about Casey is her no-nonsense, call-it-like-you-see-it kind of way, and how she keeps it real, always. And if you know me, you know how much I value that. We're all just trying to get by here. Let's work together to find the best ways to do better than that. Welcome, Casey Gromer, to the Positively Living Podcast. This conversation feels overdue, and yet the timing also feels just right to me. because we bonded years ago and we've been following and supporting each other in business and in life. And I just love your direct approach. And I'm thrilled to bring your wisdom to the Positively Living audience today.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm so happy you dated me by saying how long we've known each other. But, that's all right.
Well, we were very young when it first began.
We
Yes.
were babies. Can I share a story about kind of like when we first met and how I like fell in love with you? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, that's so appropriate.
So when we first met, I was in the throes of motherhood. I think I just had my third child and I was lost. I didn't know what was going on. And I had a coaching session with you and you sent me this worksheet that changed my life. And I don't remember the exact framework of the worksheet, but it was something to the effect of finding myself and reconnecting with my values and the things that are important to me. And it so easily walked me through that process that at that moment, it was like the beginning of this rebirth of Casey Gromer. And it's kind of been ongoing ever since then. And I have you to thank for that. So thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's so powerful. And I know you know this with what you do and who you help, how powerful it is to know when you've made a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you even know that, by the way? Did you know that story?
I
I've
didn't.
never told you that.
I didn't. And so this is really, really wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now that I need a moment, I think this is the perfect time if you would share a bit more about who you are and who you help, and at least currently, what makes you light up.
Awesome. Thank you for that invitation. So, again, I'm Casey Gromer, and I am what you might call a fractional integrator. And I bet the majority of your audience has no idea what I'm talking about, and that's fine. I'm going to tell you about a fractional integrator. So, a fractional integrator is someone who brings all the components of the business together so that we're all running smoothly. We are all focused on the same direction and we're communicating with each other in a way that makes that big picture of the business come to life. And so typically, this fractional integrator is a great support person for a visionary type business owner who is creative and has tons of ideas and their strength is just not executing on their vision or on the business plan. Their strength is the forward trajectory. Like, what does the future look like? And that is as perfectly fine to be that kind of leader. But if you are that kind of leader, you do need someone like an integrator to help bring it all together and make it happen. So that's me. Hi, I'm Casey Gromer, and my business is called She Sweet Boutique. And I talk all about the benefits of working with an integrator on the podcast, Female Founders Breaking Boundaries. And I'd love anyone listening to this podcast right now to come over and check out an episode and see if you like it.
Yeah, please do. I mean, I'm an avid listener already, and I'm excited that you've joined me on the podcast scene because I absolutely love it. And I know that you probably can already tell me that you love it.
When I first started the podcast, I thought I had a business purpose. But as I've recorded the first few episodes, I'm like, oh no, this is a creative outlet that I've been missing for so long. And I like just every week, it lights me up to come and it feels like I'm having conversations with people, which, after a year of COVID was not happening all that often. So yeah, I love it. I do. It's really fun.
And what's brilliant is that you are sharing your wisdom with the world, just like you're doing today. And you don't realize the impact that you're going to have. And in a way, that's kind of exciting. But I'm so happy that you're doing that. So, yes, definitely check out Casey's podcast. I'm listening along with you, and it's going to be incredible. But today, let's start with, I guess, the people that you serve and that I serve, there's definitely that overlap. We're talking about, I call them multi-passionate entrepreneurs, right? Oh my gosh, loving all the things, loving all the ideas. Also M1, I'm raising my hand. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. And it's wonderful because, you are not missing the whole, I need ideas. That's not what the thing is, but it's about prioritizing and making choices. But let's back up even further and talk a little bit about when we discuss scaling your business, or sometimes we'll say growing your business. I would love if you would make a distinction for us about what that means, why we want to do it, and what you see with those that you work with.
Well, I want to caveat this by saying that there is no black and white definitions for any of these things. And so while I'm going to talk to you about my own interpretation of growing and scaling, that's an idea that you can agree with or not agree with. And then you can go and do your own research and make your own decision. But when we're talking about growing a business, this is the point where you have your idea and you have tested that idea and you've got some positive feedback and it has legs. It's going to go somewhere. So that's the point where you're growing your business, is where you're taking that idea with legs and you're learning how to do more with it and make more money with it and get it out in the world to more people. The point where you get to scaling your business is the point where you're replicating things. So you've grown, and now it's time to, if you visually see like a circle, and the scaling is where the circle is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so scaling is the point where you want to consider systems and processes and anything that you can create in the business that's repetitive so that you can multiply exponentially rather than, multiplying X by Y, basically, is how the difference works.
And that's the place I love to play, because the minute you start talking systems and processes, I'm like, hi.
Yes.
Because that's where the efficiency comes in. And that's where we repeat ourselves as moms all the time. So I know that we're good at it, but it's not what you want in your business if you can help it, right?
Right. Oh my gosh, I would love to have that not at home as well. Kids, it's time to open the Asana account and check off your tasks for the day.
I feel like this might be a new business idea, but let's not get off course here. Okay. So I would tend to agree with that. And by the way, can you tell Casey's a fellow questioner? Like I explained, which is the reason for me, that was the fall in love with you part. I was like, yes, someone else who's questioning everything and not just saying it's a given, and also giving permission and being open to this idea of, listen, I'm going to put this in front of you and it's up to you to determine, does this make sense for you?
Yes, absolutely.
So we're having a conversation today that is meant to be cherry picked, basically, to figure out what works best for you and your values and what you want. But when you are sitting there with all of these amazing ideas, you have now stepped into these ideas. It's got some legs. You're making more money. You're serving more people. You're excited. You're growing. You're shifting into scaling. But here's the thing, at least that I've noticed, and I'd love your opinion on this. When there's all these ideas and you've started that expansion, that growth, and you want to shift into scaling, do you see a paralysis in terms of, okay, well, then what's the part that I'm going to scale properly with the systems and that, like, what do I pick? What do I choose? What do I focus on? Right?
Absolutely. Like that is probably, the biggest question for clients that come to us is like, I see this someday. And I don't know what happens between now and Sunday to make that happen. And so a lot of times clients will come to us with, well, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this. And I just feel very unfocused. All I need to know is like, what is the next best step? We have sort of a little process that's been successful in getting people to that answer, which again, like you said, is it's not black and white. It's not the only answer, but we need to make a decision at some point. And so the process we use helps you make a decision. And then once you make a decision, whether it's right or wrong, we got to stick with it and see it out. So,
and I think that's such an important point that I want to do that auditory highlight where you said this, and I want to stop and listen to it again, is this idea that making a decision, the idea of it being right or wrong, will paralyze you to the point where you are guaranteed not to progress. But if you say, I'm locking into something that feels right and that next right step, I love that phrase, then you play it out, you see it through, and it goes back to that idea of this is a win or a learn.
absolutely. Yeah. So that's another thing. It's like you can make that decision and you have to sort of know when it's time to say, okay, that wasn't the right decision. So we've got to back up and try something else. And that does happen. And that's what entrepreneurism is all about, is testing. But when you get to the scale point, chances are that you've done enough testing at that point that these decisions are going to come a little bit easier because you have customers, you have a proven product or a proven method method. So, in fact, in some cases, you may not even know whether it was a right or wrong decision because you're still going to have some success with whatever decision you make. So, you have to trust that you're doing the right thing.
So, would you take us through this process, please?
I sure would. The process that we use is coined the business blueprint because it's exactly that. It is laying out the roadmap for you of your business and where it's headed. And the purpose of the roadmap is so that the vision of the business doesn't just live in your head in these jumbled sequences of thoughts and ideas, but it is concrete and it's on paper and it is shared and communicated widely with your team and anyone who's supporting you. And the purpose of doing that is to make sure that if you've got multiple people making decisions on your behalf in your business, you want them all making decisions that are leading to the same thing. So it's really important for them to be able to visualize the outcome of what they're doing so that eventually someday, whatever this vision is that you have, you achieve that. So how we work through that with clients is so when you're writing a vision statement, for example, and we don't even call it a vision statement because our opinion of vision statements is that a lot of times it's a checkbox that you get done in the business. And because you've got to share something on the website, right? Like people are going to be going to your about page. And so you're looking for fancy words, you're looking for things that evoke some sort of emotion. But when we look at vision statements, we realize that these are the purpose of why you got into business in the first place. So when you're thinking about your purpose, some of the things that we have trouble articulating sometimes is what that purpose looks like if it's successful. And so while we're working on help pulling out of clients what their vision really is, we'll ask them to consider what their future looks like. And even this in itself is not as easy as it sounds because when we think of our future, sometimes it's really hard to get out of this box that we've put ourselves in. And that's what we do is we break the walls down of that box. I like to call it maybe the domino effect or the butterfly effect or whatever you want to call it, where one single action that we take today can have lots of impact or implications on the future down the road. And I think that's very similar to the butterfly effect, but that's how we look at the purpose. So if you're successful, what does that future look like? What changes are you seeing in your community? What changes are you seeing in your state, or what changes are you seeing in the world? And it doesn't even have to be directly tangentially connected to your purpose, but what that does is creates a picture of everything we're doing in this business is somehow tied to or going to impact the future. And I can give you an example of that. In my own personal purpose statement for She Sweet Boutique, some of the things that are included in my future vision are affordable and quality and equitable childcare for all women and families. I have on my vision statement, I have written, hello, Madam President. I have on my vision statement written a certain percentage of the number of women-owned businesses who are achieving a sustainable $1 million or more in business, because those are things that are not happening now. Now, am I going to be directly lifting up 300,000 women-owned businesses to $1 million? I'd love that, but probably not. But every piece of content I put out into my universe, every project I work on in my business, every client I take on is somehow going to impact that future vision in some tiny way. And so that is the power of a future vision.
Oh, but this is so good and so different. It's a real spin on it. It's really the first time I've heard it this way because we say vision statements. We say the word vision. We even talk, I teach vision boarding, right? And I do think that being able to visualize, we talk about that with Olympic athletes and goal setting and things of that nature. But what you're talking about, or at least the way that I heard it, was this idea of it being dreaming in a big picture format.
Yes.
And not only what you're doing and what you're achieving, but how the context in which that happens.
Absolutely. And the reason we think this is so powerful is because when you get up every day and you're like, my vision is to make $3 million in the business or whatever, to retire at 55, that's fancy and that's fun. But is that Is that motivational? Is that inspirational? I mean, do you get up every day and be like, yes, I'm going off to make $3 million, and your team gets up and, yes, we're helping Sally make $3,000 today, or $3 million, whatever. So another, purpose of the vision statement is to get people excited about the impact that they're having through your vision and through your business on the rest of the world. And in terms of multi-passionate, the way that we use this vision statement is to create a thread that connects all of the different passions that you have. And that is actually very difficult to do. And that is something we are really good at, is taking all of these future visions images that you have in your brain and creating some kind of common thread so that your vision statement can encompass those things. And then as you decide what it is that your business is about and what you're doing and what to focus on, all of those things are somehow tied to that vision. So even though it may feel to you like multiple passions, it's actually very focused on something that's important to you.
And that actually goes back to, I know that you're a fan of Simon Sinek too. You've mentioned him in your book, right? And that starting with why.
Yes.
And I find it so interesting. I can't remember the exact words that he uses, but the idea that when you're talking about even whatever it is in business or your job or whatever, that's what you do. It's not your why, but it represents putting your why into action. So perhaps all of these different passions that you have when you're multi-passionate are ways in which different variations on the theme of achieving that why. And that's the big picture and the connect the dots that you do.
Yes. So understanding why those things are all important to you so that it becomes something tangible to the people who support you in that journey.
Right. And that can be important in terms of how you're giving to others. It can be important in terms of how you're giving to yourself. One of the things you just described about your podcast, it's for sure giving to others, but you've come to understand very quickly that it's giving to yourself. And in terms of what I teach, it's energy management. It's something that like really lights you up and it keeps you going. And it also sounds like what you're describing with this, the future vision and the purpose and this idea of having this, then being able to share it with your team as you're expanding. When you say that it gets everyone excited, that's a form of energy management that allows you to push through those days when you're like, why am I doing this? Right?
Yes. So my kids are learning in school kind of this bucket analogy of filling your bucket. And the idea is that if you're able to fill your own bucket, that full bucket is going to spill over into other people's buckets. And that's exactly what this does, is when you wake up every day and consider why you're doing what you're doing, and every tiny little hair of a next step you take in your business is somehow impacting this huge, immense, big picture that you have. It's a bucket filler, and it makes you and your teams excited to wake up every day and do what you do.
A big part of my purpose and what I'm doing here with the podcast and just in general has to do with encouraging and promoting hope and an understanding, working together, kind of like peanut butter and jelly, not only the encouragement and the hope, but the understanding that whatever it is that you're trying to do, doesn't have to be that complicated. It's not that complicated. It's that message of simplicity and that belief that you can do it. We are now doing this together. You're helping me do this. And sometimes those steps can feel so little, just like when we're developing habits, right? We do a habit and we're like, what good did that do? But over time, I know future Lisa is going to thank me.
Right.
It's hard right now because I'm not always seeing it. You know what I mean? And that's the challenge. But it sounds like this is a way for us to help connect to that, future Casey, future Lisa,
Yes.
future she sweet, future positively productive, whatever it is. It's a way for us to keep tabs on that and be like, yep, keep it going. That's why right there.
Yes. In our framework, the vision is at the center of everything that happens in the business process. So once you have that vision, you've connected the threads with your multi-passionateness. I don't know if that's a word. So you connect those threads, and then the rest of the story is so much easier to tell. So you get to the part of, so what do I do? And that's where you can think about in what ways am I contributing to the achievement of this vision. And that's where the focus comes in, where you're like, okay, if this is the vision, if this is what's important to me, this is going to help me focus on whatever of my multi passionate things are contributing to that vision. So that comes your focus. And so that's kind of the process where we help. And that's very high level, right? There's lots more in this work. But for the very basic level, that's how we help these multi passionate people figure out like what's the next best step and where's the next best place to focus my energy at this moment.
And the productivity takeaway here, because you speak my language, you may be talking about it in a different context, is the idea of creating a filter. And so I talk about this when it comes to decluttering, right? When it comes to deciding what belongs and what doesn't in your life, in your space, in your calendar, in your car, wherever, it doesn't matter in your business, right? When it comes to deciding that, you do some work, front loading. There's some work to be done here, but you are priming your productivity because when you create this filter, the rest of the decisions suddenly feel easier because you have that clarity now.
I love how you call it a filter because visually that's exactly how I see this whole process working. And so I love that you gave me that visual. I love it.
And that's exactly what it feels like, right? Because a filter does exactly that. This belongs, this doesn't. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with what doesn't belong, but it helps you understand this is what I need to have in the space, in my space right now, in my space to achieve this purpose, this vision.
Would your listeners be interested in a little tip about what to do with those things that don't belong?
Oh, do tell. Yes.
So, a lot of our clients have those things that don't belong. And sometimes there's a little bit of an emotional attachment to those things that don't belong. And so, to ease that pain of letting that thought or idea go, instead of tossing it in the garbage, we tell them to put it in the parking lot. So the idea isn't going away, it's just getting parked somewhere, written down, never to be forgotten, in case there's a place for it at some point in the future, if the filter ever changes. That helps them feel better about saying no to an idea now if they know that it's going to be cataloged somewhere for the future.
Right. When you have that filter and you're deciding on things and you're like, this doesn't belong, I often say, if it makes you feel better, call it a not now.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and the same thing, right? It's a not now, and then what you do is you set it up. You can even set a reminder in your calendar. 6 months from now, a year from now, to revisit the idea. You can have a collection of in your captures in, your Asana or Trello or a notebook or whatever. You can have your someday ideas.
Yes. And then, chances are what I typically see happen is 6 months from now, they're like, why did I ever have that idea? And I am so glad we did not work on that idea.
But, all of it has a reason. I almost wanted to say a purpose, not to be confused with your big purpose, but it moves you forward. It gets you going. So you know how it is when you come up with an idea and it might be ridiculous, but it got the brain juices flowing, right? Like things were happening, synapses were firing, and then that led you to the next thing, to the next thing. So, it's all useful. It's just deciding what to do next, especially when you're talking about the scaling of the business. Now, another thing that you and I have definitely bonded over, and I think this comes from the data collection that we love as questioners, this idea of using our personality and the tendencies that we have. I did mention Gretchen Rubin and us being questioners. And I use that quite a bit in terms of helping clients with habit development and, with just structuring their approach to accountability, right? And expectations and things like that. But you had mentioned that you work with the Kolbe.
Yes. Well, so I'm not a certified Kolbe consultant or whatever they call those people yet. I say yet because I'm like, this has made such an impact on my decision making. And it's also important part of the work that we do with clients is understanding our people and where they are best fit and putting those puzzle pieces together in a way that is efficient and effective for the business. So the Kolbe, let's be clear here. I have taken every personality test under the sun, I'm pretty sure. So if you have one that's obscure, send it my way because I will take it.
Have you tried the Big Five personality?
Which one is that? 16 personalities I've done.
It's not 16 personalities. It's actually you could spell out ocean with it. It's about extroversion and
I have just met my first personality test I have not taken. So,
Yes, I will be sending that to you because that one's fascinating. I don't want to get off topic here, but just very quickly, and listeners already know about this because Venice Lau, we just did a strategy call together, actually, and Roxanne Ferber on both of my strategy calls. That is the one basic personality quiz that I have them do because it's a spectrum. So you get a percentage of where you are from extroversion to introversion as opposed to like a point. So I will definitely send that to you. And of course, we already know the four tendencies. But anyhow, what I am not as familiar with, although I've taken it for myself personally, is the Colby. So please tell us more about it.
okay. So, one of the things I love about the Colby, and there's a few different Colbys out there. So, the one I'm referring to be clear is called the Colby A assessment. There's also a Colby B, and then a couple of others I'm not as familiar with, but the Colby A. And one of the things I like about it is more about innate elements of ourselves than some of the other tests that I've taken, which can sometimes be a little bit subjective based on where we're at in our lives or, things like that. So the Colby is really like innate, like this is the person I am. This is how I was born kind of thing. And what it looks at is four components of your innate ability. And it's fact finder, it is follow through, it is quick start, and it is implementer. And so your tendencies on those four are also graded on a scale. And so I am super high on fact finder, which means I absorb every little tiny detail I can. I learn, I research, I analyze, and I'm very high. I think the scale is 1 to 10 on each of those four pillars, and I'm a 9 on fact finder. And so while that is my strength, it can also be a weakness. And then I will get stuck in analysis paralysis and not able to make a decision. Now, the follow through is like I do what I say I'm going to do. If I start something, it gets finished, that kind of thing. And I'm a 6 on follow through. So 6 is kind of in that mid tier. And so when you're looking at your Colby results, depending on what your score is on each of those areas, it will tell you how to use that as a strength and why that might be a weakness kind of thing. I'm a 6 on follow through, which is the mid tier, and that I can't remember verbatim what they were. I didn't memorize everything, what they were telling me about that result, but it basically means that once I do make a decision to something, I'm pretty reliable on getting that to happen or taking it through fruition. Quick start, I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that a lot of your listeners are going to score pretty highly on the quick start. And that is your idea people. So people who are just full of ideas, one after the other. And people who are quick starts are typically not very high in follow through or in fact finder, typically. Now, that's not black and white. So that's a quick start. And so the benefit of being a quick start is the ideas. So as a fact finder, I desperate to pair myself with quick starts because I have a lack of inflow of ideas. And so when we pair ourselves together, can you imagine the magic that happens with ideas that actually get done? It's great. And so the last one is implementer. And I am very low on implementer. I'm like a 2. And what that means is I'm just not engineeringly inclined. So that means that if I need to actually get my hands dirty in doing something, I am not the best person for the job because I just don't have the patience and the focus and the know-how to learn the inner workings of things. And so a great example of this might be something that holds me back in the business is like, I'm not even going to start an email list because I don't know how. And even if I had an email list, I wouldn't know how to actually create the email to send out and, those kinds of inner working things. If you're low in implementer, you're not good at that. But if you're high in implementer, that can be a good indicator of that is somebody that you're going to want to put in your business in the role as doer. So somebody who's high on quick start is not going to be a great doer, but they might be a great strategic thinker. So, if they're in the manager role or a director role or something like that.
Right. And I can immediately think of the implementer as so many of the VAs that I work with, that I coach, that I know, you know what I mean? They come in and they do it and they make it happen. And then those of us, I can't remember my exact score, but I mean, obviously I'm high on the fact side because I like that data. We definitely have that in common. And I mean, I can implement, but I definitely think I'm low on the implement side of things. And that's okay, keeping in mind that what we're looking for is the balance and the movement.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. That's the thing is if you find yourself high on implementer but low on quick start or low on, fact finder or whatever, that's great. Find your people that balance you out and that's what makes a great team is if you have all of the pieces balanced out and put together. The other thing I like about the Colby is so easy to interpret and for example, I've done the Clifton strengths and while I love the information, it's like very personally helpful, but it's really a lot harder, in my opinion, to take that information and to apply it to the business setting because, I think there's 20 of them. 20 different strengths that they analyze. And it's just like, it tells you a little bit, but it's just the Colby is just, you can visually look and see where you've got somebody sitting in the right seat or, if you need to consider some changes.
Again, it's a way to start and keep it simple. Again, those small steps that have a big impact, basically, right? And you get a good ROI on a small step if you notice that where you land and then you immediately seek out people for your team or to collaborate with in any form that have something that will balance you, you'll see a stronger movement in that regard.
And then back to my earlier point about I'm picking on StrengthsFinder here, which I'm not picking on them because I absolutely love that test. But in terms of making decisions in your business, if you think of the Colby and the components, the pillars we talked about, those are not likely to change. I am not ever likely to be a quick start. It's just my innate fact finderness. I've always been that way. Whereas in StrengthsFinder, I have taken it twice now at different points in my life, and my results have significantly changed because it's subjective to where I'm at in my life and my skills and my experiences. So that's another reason I'm really leaning to the Colby to support, those human resources decisions.
I love that you brought that up because this other concept bears repeating that is adjacent to this idea. When I talk about like the big five, the four tendencies, even although Gretchen does say this, that's fairly stable, but I still say that anything in the realm of where are you in terms of being an introvert or an extrovert, things that are personality related, scientifically, we know that that is actually not locked in. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing to understand that it's impacted by your environment, by your current situation, by your experiences, by, your drive, your desire, your purpose, your goals, whatever it happens to be. So what that is, and the way that I work with it is we're looking at where you are right now. And then how do we need to get you to like, where are you, in terms of your goals and your team? What do you need right now in order to be enough of an implementer to make it happen? And then as you move forward and you start to scale, then you can take a look like at the Colby and say, okay, here are the people that I need to start collaborating with, and you can grow that way. So I think that's just a really important distinction between the things, like you said, that are innate versus those that are definitely flexible, and there's good in both of that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I think that's a good roundup here. I guess my final question would be, stepping forward, we can grab the business blueprint from you, right? Off your site?
Yes, I have a link on my website that will take you to a worksheet of sorts of what I'm calling the company persona, which is a component of the blueprint. It encompasses a couple of the topics that we just talked about, and it also goes a little bit more in depth on blowing out those ideas into also your company values and some other elements. So those are on the website. It's a free download. And you can get that on my website is she-sweetboutique.com/positively, just for your listeners, Lisa.
Oh, I love that. And we'll be sure to have that in the show notes. And so, yeah, that's a good place to start. I also am recommending your book because that gives a nice overview of not only what we talked about today, but more, again, the big picture of these components that you need to be considering. And, I have to say that when we talk about everything from this future vision to your ideal client, and of course you have a Venn diagram in your book. So yeah, that's like my love language, that and coffee, and I'm good to go, right?
What more do you need in life? Venn diagrams and coffee.
Thank you. That's what I said. And that Venn diagram is about like, the people who want to buy from you and the people that you want to work with, and then that sweet spot in the middle. So all of this to say that these are, again, the big picture components that no matter where you are in your business, I think it's so helpful to review. Even though I have been growing and scaling and and all the things, I'm stepping back. My ideal client has shifted. actually. You know what I mean?
Yes, same. Mine
Oh,
too.
how about
Yes.
that? What do you know? So, yeah, we need to keep in practice of reviewing these things, looking at our plans and knowing that it's okay to not only okay that it's changing, but it's good. It indicates that you are, I guess, you're taking action that reflects what's going on with you and the changes that are going on with you. And that's life.
Yeah, I love to compare it to our previous conversation about how our personalities change over time. That's exactly what happens. So, your business blueprint is a snapshot of your business at any point in time. And for any client that works with me, we are reviewing that business blueprint quarterly because there is a component of, are we getting off track? Let's look at the business blueprint. And if we are getting off track, is it worth considering modifying the business blueprint because of something that has changed or shifted, whether it's in ourselves or in our markets or in what's important to us? But the important thing is that you keep documenting that, because regardless that you think that everybody should know this, right? Everybody knows this, but they don't know it. And especially if they're not living and breathing it every day, having this documented for your team and reviewing it with them on a regular basis pulls them back if they're starting to veer off course just a little bit.
Exactly. You could have mission creep, you can have scope creep, right? You can have all kinds of creep. And I find this too in terms of, when you're trying to take action and you're managing your to-do list and you're moving forward on your goals and there are things that like linger there forever and you're like, wait, what?
Yes.
Sometimes when you go back and you make this time to reflect on these big things, and I know that's not what I know, you want to just get on with it, right? But I promise you, doing this footwork will make getting on with it that much easier. And when you see those discrepancies, when you take that time to review and stay on it, you can actually catch when you do need to change what your mission is, or anything else. So sometimes it can catch it both ways. It can catch when you're not addressing something that you're really supposed to be addressing, but it's convenient to just like ignore it. And you can also address when big shifts need to happen, right?
Yes. I love that.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's a good wrap up. Did we miss anything? Is there anything else you want to share on this? I think we're good.
Well, I do kind of. You referred to my book a couple of times, and I forget about the book all the time because I don't physically have it in possession. It's out on Amazon. So they take care of it for me, and it's called A Fresh Wave of Marketing. And a few things have shifted a little bit since I've written the book, but all of the concepts still apply. And what this book is going to do is walk you through that entire business blueprint and how you get to the answers that you want to put in that business blueprint. So if you're looking for a little bit of more support on that, you can definitely get that book on Amazon.
Highly recommend. All right. Now I think it's time to have a little fun with a rapid wrap up. Are you ready?
Oh my gosh, no.
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yes,
I'm
you're so
ready.
ready. Okay. Tell me, we're filling in the blank here. The song that always makes me dance.
Oh, probably. I'm a big Aerosmith fan. So, like, Janie's Got a Gun or something like that, or Love in an Elevator, something Steven
Oh,
Tyler.
yeah. Okay. I'm picking Love in an Elevator. That's a good one. All
Okay.
right. That's going on the Positively Living Podcast Spotify Dance Playlist, Volume 2.
I'm totally listening.
All right. Now, how about a quote or mantra that I share all the time?
So I have this, you can't see it because we're on a podcast, but on my wall behind me, I came across this quote a couple of years ago. It was so impactful. It stuck with me. Like I think about it every single day in my life. And it says awareness is the greatest agent for change. And it's just this huge reminder to me that by paying attention and being aware of myself, my surroundings, my environment, nothing in my life will ever change if I don't even know what it is. Right. So it applies in every aspect of life.
Absolutely love that. I say that awareness is our number one productivity tool. So it's absolutely right on point. So I'm a fan of that one. Other than a fresh wave of marketing, other than that book,
Yeah.
is there another resource book or app, something that you use regularly that just makes your life easier?
I could write an entire blog post about this, but I think for your listeners, I would like to suggest a book called Traction. It's by Gino Wickman, and that's Gino. Gino and I, we're best buds, right? And we share a lot of the same philosophies and approaches to business, but I read his series of books. The first one is Traction, the second one is Rocket Fuel, and it just simplifies and clarifies so much about being an entrepreneur and setting up those operating systems in your business for effective, efficient growth that doesn't burn you out. And so, super easy read, super easy to implement. Go get yourself a copy.
Okay, I will definitely have that and Casey's book and all the links that we've mentioned in the show notes. So last but not least, Casey, let's share a little gratitude. What or whom are you grateful for today?
You know what? I am grateful for, I had to make a tough decision today, and I was really having doubts and I was not really feeling confident about this decision. And out of the blue, I had a biz buddy FaceTime me. I think it was even on accident that she did that. So I'm grateful for her because she was the perfect resource for me to share about this decision I was about to make. And she gave me some advice that really resonated, and the decision was made. And I had a weight lift off of my shoulders today. So her name's Nikki Ramirez, and she has HR Answers, and she is an amazing resource. If you have employees in your business, I would go check her out.
Awesome. Well, I am so grateful for you. And I want to thank you so much, Casey, for shining your light in this world and for sharing it with us today.
Yes, Lisa, I am so thrilled that we finally made this happen. I know we've been trying to make our calendars sync for a while now. And so I'm just thrilled and honored to be invited to talk to your loyal listeners.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.